What's up, everybody? It's your boy Nazo here on the Rican Brothers Raidernation podcast. Back with my co-host Anthony.
What's up, everybody?
Episode 4. We are going over post-game reactions and post-game review to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Las Vegas Raiders. We want to get right into it with you here. Appreciate you joining us once again. And yeah, man, I just want to go ahead and, talk about your instant reactions, I guess, to the game, what you saw that was good, what was bad, and we'll kind of dive in on both sides of the ball of, what was going on that we saw. But hell of a game. What's your thoughts?
Oh, man, I couldn't agree more, man. I told you it was going to be a pretty evenly matched game in the pregame. I said that, it was going to matter in how the defense stepped up and played right. And the biggest takeaways that I really saw out of anything was honestly the composure of the defense and DC just taking that offense, really feeling a lot of control, a lot of confidence, really going forward. So to me, I honestly thought that this week, the team just really, the presence on the field altogether, I feel like that was a complete win, like all around, on both sides of the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just like you said, we kind of knew that this was going to be a test for the Las Vegas Raiders. And it was really big how the defense held up. And, we probably thought there was going to be more sacks in the game from different contributors.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how it was a team effort on defense where there were guys that maybe you weren't really expecting to have impact plays the way they did coming up in the clutch. And overall, I think Derek Carr really put the team on his back, with Josh Jacobs being out. So I want to get to a couple things. So the final score of the game, 26-17, right? Really was something that was kind of flipped as far as from an expert point of view. Everyone thought, the Steelers were going to beat them in a close game, that they were going to pound the ball on the running side with Najee Harris on the Steelers. And they knew the struggles for the Raiders were going to be existent as far as Josh Jacobs being out and you having Peyton Barber and Kenyon Drake filling in for him. On the offensive side of the ball, I want to talk about what did you see from the running game that really needs to happen, especially with that O-line that we kind of have that revolving door right now, kind of plug and play players there. Tell me a little bit about what you were seeing that maybe the Raiders could execute a little bit better on.
So I think like most people who were watching the Raiders game, when you saw Leatherwood go out, you kind of assumed the worst, right? And you thought that they weren't going to get that push.
Yeah.
Honestly, in fact, when he went out, they did a better job of controlling the football. They really did get they were running the ball a lot more effectively. I just felt like the offense really was clicking well. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Leatherwood. Again, he's a rookie. Yeah. Stand out, he's going to learn. We saw a lot of rookies early on this year on many different franchises. They're getting their bumps and their bruises, right? They got to learn the hard way. This is the NFL. This is a different level. But as far as the way that Derek Carr spread the workload and really distributed the ball, running wasn't really much of a factor in this game. They got the yards that they needed when need be. But I know we talked about it in the pregame about how we thought some players were going to step up. Kenyon Drake, really, he didn't do anything overwhelming. I honestly just, I'm kind of just at a loss for, Peyton Barber, didn't really do much at all. So honestly, I'm glad that you brought up the underwhelming factor in the way of how the Raiders ran the ball.
Yeah.
Easily, I think they ran definitely less than 75 yards. They rushed 75 yards, less than 75 yards this game.
Yeah.
Which if you're going to try and play and win football games, you're going to need to win in both aspects of the ball, not only throwing, but, rushing. So, I mean, I know that you were talking a lot about Peyton Barber. You actually thought that he was going to really perform. What did you honestly think of the halfbacks' efforts in the backfield and how they tote the rock this week?
So, I mean, going back to your point with Leatherwood going out, I know he is a more dominant run blocker, so I know that would have helped us out a little bit better. Just because pass blocking really isn't where we want to see it right now. I mean, we saw this with Colton Miller when we first drafted him from UCLA in his rookie year. He had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, and people were starting to call him a bust and all this and that, which is it's complete nonsense when you look at 2 games into the season. You have a starting right tackle in the NFL who's pretty much going up against nothing but premier pass rushers. When he went out, Brandon Parker, I thought, stepped in pretty well. He is typically our swing tackle. So I thought he stepped up to the plate and actually played pretty well. Good enough to where Derek Carr was, given ample amount of time. But as far as our running game, I think that Peyton Barber, he didn't do as much as I expected. I expected maybe like 50, 60 yards from him, and Kenyon Drake getting right around like maybe 40 to 60 yards as well. But the thing that I will say that I love about the continuous effort to run the ball is when we needed those first downs on running plays, we actually got them towards the end of the game. So I wasn't really as upset initially as I had felt throughout the game because they were pounding the rock and so on. But when we needed the first downs and we needed the push up front, we actually got it and extended the drive and had more time of possession, which John Gruden loves to do. Time of possession is his game on, extending those drives, even when he's up, especially on what he'll do just to make sure that he pretty much secures victory and puts his defense in a good position. So overall, not what I expected. I really want to get Trey Regis out there. I'm not sure what the hell's going on with just the non-utilization of Trey Regis, because I really do feel like him being young, fresh legs, and he the bruiser type back, you need to get him out there. Kenyon Drake is that long, lean back that is a pass catcher. You need rotating Peyton Barber and Trey Regis on those, first and second down runs that you're going to get 3, 4, 5 yards. It's just easier for, the series for Derek Carr. And I'm glad you brought up Derek Carr because I kind of wanted to go over some numbers here with you. And I wanted to let you know kind of where we stand right now, which I think what's amazing in Derek Carr in 3 career games versus Steelers, right? Got 67% completion percentage, 1,005 passing yards with 8.74 yards per, average, 8 TDs, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 114.
Yeah.
So if that tells you anything, how did you feel about his performance overall?
I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I called this.
Yeah, you did. I
called this. Okay. I mean, I was shy a touchdown, but I'll tell you this, man. I was so surprised that he threw the deep ball to Ruggs. And I mean, this dude just winged a 60-yard touchdown pass to Ruggs like it just wasn't even a thing, man. He just tossed it out there, held it up, you know what I mean, and let his boy go get it, man. I think that when you look at the utilization, this is, I think, the biggest part of his success. He's not trying to force anything, okay? Yeah. He's spreading the rock. And the one thing that I'm really happy about, we talked about this from the post game last week, and what we wanted to see this week was spreading the rock a little bit more. He didn't force anything into Darren Waller this week. He really didn't try and get anything too much. He didn't try and go, I think they learned their lesson from last week. So for me, it was that evolving from the previous week's problems, right? And growing and moving forward. That's my big thing is he really did do a great job of managing the game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Spreading the
to
ball
me,
around too.
yeah. I mean, to me, and
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on this. To me, with the way that he played last week, okay, against the Steelers,
Mhm.
I would take that DC against any offense in the NFL if he's playing that level of offensively. If he's playing that good with the ball and he's got that clear conscience on his mind of the game plan and sticking to it,
Yeah.
this DC is what Raider fans wanted. Is now you've been a Raiders fan for a long time. We're talking back Rich Gannon, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Question: is this the DC that you've wanted to see?
Yeah. I mean, he's making smart throws. The one thing that I will say is spreading the ball around is really key, especially when you have somebody like Darren Waller. He's going to draw the attention, right? So that's when you get Renfro involved. That's when you get Foster Moreau involved. You get, Henry Ruggs involved. You got Willie Snead involved. You got Brian Edwards involved. Even Alec Ingold, the fullback, he even caught. And I love Alec Ingold. I think he's one of the top pass catching fullbacks and the best blockers in the league when Josh Jacobs is healthy. But I was really upset about the offensive line play just down the stretch when DC had it and he was, getting them down the field, driving them down. I think it was kind of a bullshit call that they did on Alex Leatherwood on that Brian Edwards touchdown. I just really want to see my man eat because he's been playing he's low-key playing very smart receiver play just as far as finding his openings, beating his guy, and being available as the open target, when DC is down in the red zone and just pushing the ball on the other half of the field. So great thing that I'd like to point out here, because I know there's a lot of Derek Carr haters.
Yep.
I have beef with Derek Carr just on his ball security. So as long as that stays consistent as securing the ball, which it was a little shaky when TJ Watt did the strip sack, but TJ Watt, that's what he does. Okay. So I can't discredit DC for that because that's what TJ Watt's known for. He's number one in the league. Check this out. So the last 22 games, right, of Derek Carr, 67.7 completion percentage. You have 6,131 yards with 8.11 yards per catch, right? 40 total TDs, 10 interceptions with 102.7 passer rating, okay? That's really fucking good numbers.
So you're talking about all NFL. You're not talking about just
I'm talking the
Steelers, because you gave us the Steelers numbers before that. You're talking about all NFL, all opponents. This is what we're talking about.
The last 22 games. That's
okay.
40 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, over 6,100 yards with a 68% completion percentage, passer rating of damn near 103. I'll take that any day.
Yeah, easily.
Okay. And I mean, it was a great prediction that you had in regards to what he was going to do, because to be honest with you, I thought you went a little high just because I know how good the Steelers defense is. But that first half struggle, now TJ Watt going out of the game definitely helped us. And Tyson Alualu, he broke his ankle in that game. So I think he's done for the year. But that just goes to tell you, even though we may have a makeshift line right now, there's some dogs up front. They're putting hands on you and they're doing all they can to finish plays, because Tyson Alualu, he's not a small guy. He's huge. He stuffs he stuffs that middle for the defensive line on the Steelers side, and he's gone. Now, TJ Watt injured his groin. They say that he's going to be, probably week to week, I'm assuming. But he did aggravate it, and it opened up a lot. You saw a lot more aggressive play out of Derek Carr.
Man, that was key, man. I mean, I hate to capitalize on another man's injury, you know what I mean? But the fact that he was out of the defense and that disruption wasn't there on the offensive line, I mean, it worked in the Raiders' favor. Yep. But it happens. This is the NFL, man. This is just what happens.
And like you said, it's the NFL. This is what happens. And they always say, the best ability is availability. If you're not available to play on the field, people are going to capitalize. They're going to make you pay, and it's up to you to make those changes. You need to optimize whatever you're doing on either side of the ball, offense and defense. Now let's not discredit the Raiders here. They have three starting offensive linemen out, and their running back. So anyone who's talking shit where they're like, oh, well, TJ Watt was out, Joe Hayden was out, Devin Bush, I don't give a shit, because we have three of our big men up front who protect Derek Carr, who were out of the game, along with our premier rusher, who was easily a top 5 rusher in the league. They were all out of the game. So I don't want to hear this, this and that. You can discredit the Raiders all you want, but at the end of the day, they put up, they made the adjustments, they had people step up, and they got it done. Like, I just hate how there's this shit about, and we'll get to it later with, the Raiders being 2-0 and the Broncos being 2-0.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Don't even get me started, bro.
You got the Broncos facing the Giants and Jaguars. Statistically, probably the bottom, I'd say 3 in the league. 30, 31, 32 right there. So, and their winning percentage is barely, I think, maybe over 200%. So, versus you have the Raiders who beat the Ravens and the Steelers, who those two teams right there are easily within the top 12 of the league. So, I mean, the comparison of the strength of the teams that we beat far outweighs, with the Broncos, who are tied with us for first in the division with the AFC West. Now, to your point, like you said, Derek Carr playing out of his mind. I mean, these first 2 games, 62 of 93 with a 67% completion ratio or percentage, 817 yards and 4 TDs.
So the one thing that I want to get your feedback on is this, and I know that we're going to cover both sides of the ball and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I know you saw the Ravens-Chiefs game.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So I know you saw that, okay? Now, hell of a game. Another hell of a game, right? However, the thing that I want to ask you personally is, I have my own opinion. I want to know this about what you think.
Absolutely.
They're saying that the Ravens' first week, that they got off slow, and that now the offense is starting to gel. My personal question to you is, in the NFL at this point in time, now we're looking at a lot of teams, we're looking at a lot of question marks, and I know it's just the beginning of the season. Do you think a lot of people are sleeping on the Raiders right now?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I don't care what the Ravens did against the Chiefs. The Chiefs did not get nearly the pass rush that we got against the Ravens. We pressured them over 53% of the times, okay? And Max Crosby was making his home in the backfield, okay? So I didn't see any of that on the Chiefs. It was basically a gun show. You were slinging the rock and just back and forth. That's why they scored so much. Now, granted, there were some explosive plays against the Raiders that the Ravens had, but I'm sorry, Lamar Jackson was running for his life more than not when he played the Raiders, because of that pass rush that we had up front between Max, and even up the middle with Quentin Jefferson and Jonathan Hankins. So I think the thing is they're always going to discredit the Raiders whenever there's an opportunity to, because they're the Raiders. They're a hated team throughout the NFL. They haven't been the greatest in the last decade, and we've only made it to the playoffs once back in 2016. But the biggest thing that's different this year compared to the last 5 years is what? We have a fucking defense. And the defense not only is good, but they're getting to the quarterback. And I think that's a good segue to go to the other side of the ball on defense. But I just want to say one thing. Your boy, Nazo, again, Henry Ruggs predicted, right? Did I not predict that?
You did. You called a big game. You called a very big game. And like I said, I mean, I as soon as he caught that 61-yard touchdown, bro, I was like, man, this man is gonna let me hear it, dude. This guy is gonna let me hear it, because he called Henry Ruggs, man, and sure enough, he got it.
Because the thing is, with a player like that, it takes one play. And I don't know if you saw when they were moving down the field, Henry Ruggs caught I believe it was like a 35, 40-yard catch, right? Where he broke free and got 10 extra yards, I think it was 12 yards after the catch, that put them in position to do what? Hit my man Foster Moreau for the touchdown. Again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To look out for this year, because when Waller's, covered up and that big body you need to make that catch in the red zone, guess what? Foster Moreau was there in the back of the end zone, catching that, bringing it down. And I'm telling you, man, the emerging stars on the offense, you'll start to see slowly. You'll see Ruggs, you'll see Moreau, you'll see Brian Edwards. And I did like how Willie Snead did make a critical catch, but can we give some love to my man Hunter Renfrow?
Oh man, I mean, it was funny. I remember when we did the pregame for week 1, and you were talking about Hunter Renfrow and third and Renfrow, and then sure enough, that's what they called it, was third and Renfrow. Sure enough, man. I mean, this dude has the grit and the integrity to continue to show up day in and day out, make the difficult catches, stick in there, and just, take his licks and keep on taking, man. He kept on going, and I loved it. I just wanted to say one thing before I forget. What I was talking about with the Ravens and the Chiefs game is that exactly what you said. I felt like the Raiders played a much more complete, although the game was not as executed as cleanly as we saw in the Pittsburgh game. But I just wanted to say that's where I was going with that is that even though it was week 1 and the adjustments were being made, the Raiders clearly made the adjustments. Yeah. And this week we saw even further adjustments. So for me, again, like I said, my opinion on that was I do feel like the Raiders are not getting enough, enough, because they tend to just focus on those two teams, right? And like I said, for me, again, I heard a lot of smoke coming. Oh well, they're not, they're playing the Raiders and this and that, and I felt like it was just like it was week 1. They're making excuses for that game. So, like I said, to me, there is zero excuses because, again, the Raiders played a good game in week 1, and definitely we saw a more complete game in week 2.
Well, because this is what happens. They talk about people not being prepared and not being in their element in the first couple of weeks, and they got to settle in. Well, the Raiders have not been settled in. God forbid they get settled in and that offense starts hitting on all cylinders. You better watch out. And the weeks that I'm looking forward to is the first meeting with the Broncos and the first with the Chiefs, because they will be dealt with. I guarantee you that they circled that one with the Broncos and they circled the ones with the Chiefs. And now I'm not saying to overlook the Chargers, because I definitely know that all the divisional games are important, but the Broncos they're talking a lot for not beating really any team. And the Chiefs, we just really want to get back what happened last year, because we were, a minute and 20 seconds away from winning that second game and doing the sweep on them. So, but man, that catch by Hunter Renfrow on that pivotal third down where he extended himself. The guy just has hands like no other. And, that's what he did a lot at Clemson. And I just think we just need to give him a little bit more love, because he's so humble. He's so under the radar. But I feel like the connection that Derek Carr and him have is just one that it can't be explained. And I'm really proud of the guys building upon last week's effort and just continuing to, stack wins and spreading the ball around. We thought it was going to be the Darren Waller show. I know you had predicted, and so did I, going over 100 yards. I think he only ended with 65 yards. But, hey, he made critical plays down the line when we needed him to, because the first half he wasn't really doing what we thought. So, it's okay. We still played with grit. We made the adjustments, and, bringing it over to the defensive side of the ball. How about Solomon Thomas, right? Guy has an ACL injury, was on the 49ers. We ended up getting him in free agency, came over to the silver and black. He was juiced about coming over. I really liked his mindset. And I really like him because, he's big on mental health.
Yes.
His sister committed suicide, and God bless her soul. I think he's a great all-around guy, just in the sense of just his attitude after everything that's happened to him. I mean, I believe, I don't want to misquote myself, and you could look this up to confirm. He was either the third or fourth overall pick in the draft that he went to the 49ers. I believe he was third overall out of Stanford. And he was projected to do amazing things, and he never lived up to the hype. He got injured. He was kind of buried behind that San Francisco defense that, they have great players on there. So, hats off to them for building that thing up. But Solomon Thomas with 2 sacks, man. What'd you think about his performance?
I felt like no one. I mean, Solomon Thomas was the man who stood out, right? That's apparent. I felt like the overall state of the defense, it was like everyone did their job. Everyone legit did their job, and it was a complete team effort. I loved just seeing, again, like I said, Solomon Thomas did a great job. I mean, Denzel Perryman did a great job. I mean, those were the 2 guys. And I mean, of course, Hayward. I mean, bro, can we talk? I mean,
trust me, we'll get to him because I got some numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Solomon Thomas, again, like you said, iffy. Let's call it an iffy career in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, he didn't.
I think he's got an opportunity to right any wrongs, and he's off to a flying start. That's where I want to go with it, because I think that, like, again, you've preached about this from when we started. The defensive genius of this squad and their overall scheme is really fits the attitude, the makeup, and the personnel. Yeah. And I know a lot of teams want to go out and grab this guy and this guy because it's the name, but truly the Raiders have done the right thing with compromising this defensive unit by fitting guys who fit the scheme. You know what I mean? And the success we're starting to see already in week 2. I'll tell you this right now. I will say for fantasy wise, I will predict that the Raiders may have a top 5 defense by the end of the year.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I mean, that's where if we're on the trajectory where it's at right now. But like I said, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're absolutely right. I think Solomon Thomas is righting any wrongs that happened in good old San Fran.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is you got to remember our starting D tackles are Quentin Jefferson and Jonathan Hankins, right?
Yeah.
You got Darius Philon, who, remember we talked about, he tweaked his knee in practice, so he saw less snaps this game, which I think it was smart to kind of lower his snap count and increase Solomon Thomas, because look what happened. You got 2 sacks from your rotational defensive tackle, while Quentin Jefferson and Max Crosby were having a party in the backfield almost every couple of plays. And I just think with Solomon Thomas, he's an effort player. He's going to continue to keep pushing, and that's how he got those sacks, because they weren't the initial push. They were secondary efforts, which, let's just talk about it. Max Crosby had another great game. He had 6 pressures and 5 QB hits.
The Condor.
Brian Baldinger is the one who gave him that name. He's he's a lineman himself back in the NFL, back in the old days, and he loves Max Crosby. The tape that he always puts out on him was just amazing. So I definitely urge you guys to go check out Baldy's reviews on the Raiders that just got put out recently here in the last day or so. And, with the pressures right now from this defense, you have Max Crosby sitting at 15 pressures in 2 games.
Yep.
And Yannick Ngakoue had 11 pressures. So you have 26 pressures that have turned into 5 sacks total. So you have about a 20% hit rate. But the thing that's beautiful that I'm going to talk about right now, what happened on one of those Max Crosby pressures? We talked about it.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say is Solomon Thomas, okay, came up with 2 of those sacks as a result of the pressure from
Max Crosby and Yannick.
No, I thought, I'm thinking it was more Yannick, but yeah, Max Crosby and Yannick. You're right. I mean, that's the presence of bringing these guys in. Is it's not a selfish defense. They're causing pressure so that as a cohesive unit, they're doing the job, man. So, I mean, oh, by the way, Solomon Thomas, third pick
in the draft, So
2017,
And I know that kind of brings me to like Cleve Farrell. I know he played and he didn't get many snaps. I think he got maybe like 15 to 20 snaps this game because I know they're trying to ease him in and bring him along. But, I saw him, in the run game, doing what he usually does and just stuffing the hole. And he's not going to be a sack artist again. So I know that we picked him 4th overall. I know, Raidernation wants him to just fly off the ball and have all these sacks and stops and be this premier player. But let's just call it what it is. I mean, he's going to be a rotational guy in this Gus Bradley defense. And we want to win. We want to go to the playoffs.
Yes.
We want people to be fearful of our upfront presence. And we want to cause turnovers on the back end, which, like I was just talking to you about, Max Crosby was the one who caused, Trayvon Mullen to get that interception because of the pressure. Now, I did Trayvon Merrick was going to get the interception, but Trayvon Merrick played another good game. He hasn't really yet been tested, but, Trayvon Mullen coming through with the first interception of the year. I wanted to ask you because I know you brought up Casey Hayward, and I'll get to some of his rankings right now that I think you'll, love. What did you think about the secondary play? And what did you think about your man, Abram? Because I know he did get that stiff arm.
Oh, Jesus.
But I think overall he made up for it. After that happened, he stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, so let's not get it twisted, right? Abram's going to be shown on NFL highlights from now until forever, right? Because that's Najee Harris's first power move that he's thrown somebody to the ground. That's great, right?
Yeah.
But for every one stiff arm that he's been thrown to the ground, tell me how many human spears this man has sacrificed his body for.
Human hit, Jonathan Abram.
I mean, if I could take a man who just honestly has and this is weird because I'm talking about a Hall of Famer, has the intensity and the power of Ray Lewis today in a secondary position, it's John Abram. I'm sorry. I'll say that. He is a beast. He is a beast. He is a young man who's still learning as well. Mm-hmm. I think he's finding that niche because you remember when we were talking about him in years past where we were saying that he's a little over the edge and he needs to tone it back a little bit so that he's more focused. I think you're seeing a more focused John Abram right now. I really do.
Yeah, and the volume was just cranked up too low.
Yeah.
He needed to crank it down a little bit more, play a little bit more under control. And the thing is, he got on that, okay? Because let's not deter from Najee Harris is a beast. He's a freak, and he's kind of built like Derrick Henry in that regard, with how big he is. But Jonathan Abram, if you look at him getting, stiff armed, he was way too high. If he hits he's undercutting Najee Harris's legs, and he's doing what he does. And I will say, I don't know if you saw that play where Chase Claypool tried to get that reverse coming around. Who was there? Abram, and he literally made him do a cartwheel on his head. So he made up for it, and he continued to play. And the thing that I love about Jonathan Abram is he might have a showcased, hit against him, but he's coming back and he's hitting 9, 10, 11 times, with much more aggressiveness. And he's going to make his money where he responds to once he misses. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from Abram this year is he's responding to the critics. He's responding to his poor play that he recognized last year. again, playing out of position in, Chubby Gunther's, defense, where it's just way too overcomplicated. He was everywhere. So I want to just tell Jonathan Abram, who cares if you got stiff arm? That's one play. I respect you, and I love what you did the rest of the game, because it really set the tone for this defense on how aggressive they were. And hey, the secondary, I think, played great. I want to ask you specifically about Casey Hayward. What did you see that made you happy? Because I'll let you know my take on it. Of almost like a vintage Casey Hayward when he was kind of in his prime.
So Casey Hayward to me is just that ball hawk. His presence in the defense is getting to the point now for the Raiders, and I noticed them starting to do this week where they were going away from him. Okay, that's my biggest thing. Is that to me is the ultimate respect for any corner or safety in this league, where you are able to dictate offense. If you're able to go away from a guy because he's a lockdown, and I'll give you one thing, right? I'll tap into my guys, right? Darrelle Revis, man. They called it Revis Island for a reason, right? He was a lockdown dude. And I'm not saying that Hayward is doing that yet, but he's definitely letting people know that if you bring that shit in his house, you are not going to moss him, number one. And number two, you may get the reception, but there are no yards after catch after you're getting the ball. Yeah. He is in all sense of the word, excellent addition for that secondary. I really love his presence on the field. Mm-hmm. And that to me dictates you minimizing the potency of offense from your opposition. Yeah. That's it.
Absolutely. And there were two specific plays where he could have had a pick, where he was right on it.
Okay.
And I mean, his sense of awareness always has impressed me, even when he was on the Chargers. And I think with Casey Hayward, the stat that really jumped out to me is after 2 weeks, he's the number one cornerback in the NFL. Out of two possible. His PFF grade is the highest in the NFL, along with, Max Crosby being the first for the defensive ends and Yannick being number 7. So hats off to those guys, impact players. And I think with somebody like Casey Hayward, he's going to help bring along the rest of that secondary. And man, again, the guy that we were talking about, who we just drafted this year from the Fighting Illini, Nate Hobbs, highest graded rookie. So what does that tell you in the secondary? Casey Hayward is to be recognized for him coaching them up, because yes, it's Gus Bradley's scheme and their, abilities as far as playmakers, but at the same time, it's because of Casey Hayward communicating with those guys and kind of quarterbacking in that secondary that's allowing those guys to come along so quickly and just be instant impact players.
Yeah.
Nate Hobbs and Casey Hayward, I love the way that they played. And even Denzel Perryman, man. Denzel Perryman and KJ Wright were playing great as well. So let's not, avoid giving them their credit, because I remember you saying that KJ Wright is just going to get better progressively game after.
Correct, yeah.
Like you said, he's coming along, and I think Denzel Perryman is only about a couple days behind him as far as how long he's been with this Raiders team.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, did he lead? He led the team last week in tackles.
Yep, he did.
Denzel Perryman, right?
Yeah, and I believe he was up there either the first or second again this week.
Yeah, no. I was just checking because like I said, I mean, they're okay. So there's one thing to say about guys who have been with the team from the start of training camp, but you're talking about two guys who are coming in, making impactful defensive contributions, who are with the team for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks of camp.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that speaks a lot to them already knowing Gus Bradley's scheme.
Yep.
Them being able to verbalize to those other players that maybe aren't familiar with it, but catching them up to speed. And I think the cohesiveness of this defense is only going to get better as the progress. And the only thing I will say I'm disappointed on, which I know that you talked about him a little bit, was Damon Arnett, man. He made one great play for a pass deflection, but the pass to Chase Claypool down the sideline for, I think it was like 59 yards, which led to that Juju Smith touchdown. You got to fucking tackle him when he's on the ground, or you got to touch him. I don't care. This isn't college. It's not once you catch it and down, you're down. So I think that those mental errors are really what's holding back Damon Arnett. And I think that's why his snaps have been taken away. Now, he did play more because of the rotation with giving those guys rest. The secondary, just to keep them fresh. But, man, what do you think about Damon Arnett for where he is right now? Because this is essentially his second year. He battled injuries last year. Between concussions and then the arm, then he put on the weight, the muscle. He's getting acclimated to Gus Bradley's defense. What are you wanting to see from him moving forward after what was seen in the Steelers game?
Well, like you said, I mean, he got beat, all right, and he got manhandled a little bit. I mean, it's the second game of the season, right? In his second year. You're right. He was injured last year. And I think, we're quick to make judgments about people, right? We were just talking about this about John Abram, right? You got to turn it down a little bit. People mature faster than others. For me, I think that's the situation here is that, you hit the nail on the head. This is not college. You can't be like, oh, man. You're like, oh, no, man. You got to make the tackle, bro. This guy's going to keep going. Like, you can't just look for your buddy to have your back and get it done. Like, you got to do the shit yourself. And that's what I'm talking about, is that's that maturity. That's that, okay, well, I got beat. Let me finish the play. Then afterwards, then I can kind of like bitch and moan about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about is that, hey, he's got to mature a little bit more. That's it. I mean, I think the kid's going to come along. I think as the year progresses, yes.
Yeah.
He should really pay attention to KJ Wright, right? He should really pay attention to Casey Hayward. These are guys who are veterans. Mm-hmm. Get in their mind. Have them play to you. Dictate to you. How do you do this? If you get beat, what's this? Learn that from that veteran presence.
Yeah.
That's all I really want to see from him, honestly, is I want to see him grow. Mm-hmm. That's it. Because he's shown last year, he showed he could play. He had a lot of flashy plays last year. He was not bad. You know what I mean? He was great last year.
When he had his moments, he did show up. And like you said, I mean, it's about being consistent. It's about getting into those veteran players' mindsets and just like, how do I overcome my mishaps? How do I grow from it? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? Because, coming out of Ohio State, I like Damon Arnett. Do I think we should have drafted him as high as he should? No. I think maybe a second or third round was more feasible. But, hey, we drafted him where we drafted him. They saw something in him. And what was funny is I was going to tell you, so where he allowed Chase Claypool to catch that, and he threw his hands up and kind of was going off. Who made the tackle? Abram, because he's fucking everything. Abram has had his moments of shame, and I think that's somebody that maybe he can get with who could help bring him along, because I've seen a lot of maturity in Abram, just because he is kind of that. He's going to jaw jack. He jaw jacks a lot. He talks his shit, but if he misses a play, he makes up with a bigger play. And that's the thing that I love about Jonathan Abram is his resiliency. And I think that's something that Arnett can learn from. And I think even Nate Hobbs, he might be a rookie, but this dude, he holds himself like he's like a 5-year veteran at least.
Yeah.
Because remember when we went back to it, Lovie Smith, Lovie Smith, you can tell the type of players he grooms just by the way that they carry themselves, their work ethic, and just their ability just to get after things. And I think with Damon Arnett, I feel like that's a big area that he needs to concentrate on if he wants to be successful with this team. Because I think come a year or two down the road, he could find himself having a quick exit out of Las Vegas. Not saying that I want him to, but you got to show out on the field. You got to. The thing I do know about Gus, he won't get mad at you for making mistakes. He'll get mad at you if you make a mistake and you don't learn from it and you don't get better that next time it comes around. And we saw that a lot in Seattle. We saw that a lot on the Chargers. And I think that's the thing that really makes him that real player coach that people want to play for, is he's okay with you messing up, but you better come up with a better play the next time it comes around and make it count. I want to talk about a couple of things here.
The one thing I just wanted to touch base with you, as far as like when you were talking about the guys who run their mouths a lot, right? Like, let's talk about a couple of just real quick safeties in the league who run their mouths a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Minkah Fitzpatrick, right?
Yep.
Adrian Amos, Jamal Adams, and last but not least, Tyrann Mathieu, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need a guy like that. You need a guy like that on your squad. The difference with John Abram, he brings the heat. He brings the heat. And a lot of those guys have all been made look foolish before, like John Abram has. And like to what you were saying, right? This is where the young man can learn is, all right, cool. We've all looked dumb before on film.
Yeah.
How you respond.
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest area that Abram has grown. And it's just fucking crazy to me because it's like, it's okay if he makes mistakes because you don't see him make the same mistake twice in this defense. He was doing the same dumb shit with Gunther because Gunther couldn't get through to him as a player. And, both of us have played football, not only in high school, I haven't played at collegiate level, but the thing is like, there are certain coaches who can get through to you that are able to coach you up and you're able to respond to with their delivery and what they're teaching you. And I think Abram has found that educator in Gus Bradley. Now it's Arnett's turn. It's Arnett's turn to say, hey, listen, I'm going to go over the film. I'm going to spend a lot of time in the film room on those plays that I had missed specifically. And I'm going to get with those players on my squad who are my brothers in the secondary. And I'm going to see where I can improve because that next opportunity he gets, he wants to capitalize on it because he'll find himself down in that depth chart to where he's now the third option rather than because he's not starting. Nate Hobbs, I can't say enough about it, man. He is like Max Crosby. We never expected Max Crosby to be a starter, with where he was drafted. Nate Hobbs is that guy in the secondary for us. And I'm just ecstatic to see what he's going to do once he gets his grip on just the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this dude is going to be lights out. And I don't think a better person who could teach him Casey Hayward, especially in this system. I think he's great as a mentor, and you could see him highest graded rookie defensive back. This is in regular season. So not only is he in preseason, but now in regular season after 2 weeks.
5th rounder.
I know. And you're getting him for nickels on the dollar, So it's like the fact that you found him, I just think, again, to credit what you said, people might not like how Mayock drafts, but they're starters in the NFL. And this guy was him along with Max Crosby. Yes, they're not good statistically with first rounders and even second rounders because Derek Carr was not drafted by them. That was a Reggie McKenzie pick, him being a second round quarterback. But Mayock has gems that he finds in the late rounds. So you got to give him his due. You can't just talk shit about this guy as a GM. But again, they have to produce, like Mike said. If we don't make the playoffs, he could be looking for a new job at the end of the year.
That and he, I mean, to me, he's brought in more talent than his predecessor, but
All right, so this is what I got for you. So right now, the Raiders are ranked 11, previously 18th in the first week.
Okay.
There are 5 teams that are 1-1 ranked higher than the Raiders. Chiefs at number 2, Ravens number 3, Bills number 5, Packers number 6, Browns at 8, and Seahawks number 9. I need your take on why the NFL deems those teams better than the Raiders as they are now 2-0.
Mainstream media. That's why. Okay. Las Vegas Raiders are the dudes that you can't help but look away from when they're whooping your ass, but you don't want to play them on a daily basis because they come to play, okay? However, there is this bad boy image of the Raider emblem, okay? So for me, it's not attractive. The Browns were terrible for over a decade. Now they have Baker Mayfield and a beefed up defensive line, which, by the way, is not doing great.
No.
You have his wide receiving core, right? Both injured, but yet they're ranked above the Raiders. Give me a fucking break, man. The Raiders beat the Ravens. Give me a fucking break, man. Like, seriously. Like, bro, you beat these guys. How are they ranked higher than you? Now, don't get me wrong. If you're going off of what could happen, that's basically what you just told me is what I think could happen in the future, but you're not talking about right now.
Yeah, and all those teams are 1-1. So
yes.
This is what I ask you is, the Bills lost to the Steelers, right? The Chiefs lost to the Ravens.
Yes.
The Browns lost to the Chiefs. How are they better than the Raiders?
I'm telling you, man, it's the narrative that the fucking mainstream media likes to write. They want to put this there because that's what's attractive to the majority of the public. It has nothing to do with stats because we talked about it for the last 2 weeks. We've talked about control, and we've talked about where the team ranks offensively and defensively. There is not a goddamn stat on here that you can tell me that they're getting worked by any other team on there, especially when Derek Carr is one of the top passers and you have the top-ranked defensive guys on the fucking Raiders. There is nothing there. There is no argument. Anybody could sit here and argue with me, and I challenge you to fucking argue with me because I'm telling you this now. The numbers don't lie. They just don't lie.
Yeah, and the thing that's just crazy to me is it's like, until we play the Chiefs and until we play the Broncos,
yeah,
I think they're going to be singing a different tune because that defense, again, they need to just stay healthy. I really can't wait till Darius Philon comes back and he's 100% because his impact week 1 was just ridiculous.
It was.
Now, Quentin Jefferson, I think he's an amazing defensive tackle, but having someone at the same caliber who backs you up in Darius Philon, I think you can't overlook that on the defensive side of the ball when you're on offense, that you literally have someone who's just as big, who has the same amount of push, and then you have somebody who's more athletic than Hankins playing next to you in Solomon Thomas. That push up front, man, for their defense now, after 2 weeks of play, they're ranked 10th. They're the 10th best defense.
Yeah.
Right? 5 sacks, 1 interception. And the amount of pressures is really what's going to continue just to allow them to increase that number of sacks because as well as I do, once you have those pressures, if they're not getting the ball out, they're getting sacks or they're getting fumbles. If they do get the ball out, that's when you're counting on your secondary to play the ball, and those interceptions will start to increase. So I think the health of our defense is really the number one thing that needs to be emphasized as far as for John Gruden moving forward. And I know with the injuries on offense, it's going to play a part because you can't throw the ball like we did against the Steelers. Like every game, you just can't. So Josh Jacobs needs to come back healthy. And I know that you were saying that it's probably going to linger. He's probably going to miss maybe a couple games. And I don't see him playing against the Dolphins.
We'll talk about that one next time. But I just wanted to ask you something. I wanted to ask you from your perspective, who really, either side of the ball, who surprised you this week in a good way?
I don't know if they really surprised me, but I think the team that's been surprising me is the Houston Texans.
No. I'm talking about Raider.
Oh, Raider?
On the Raiders. Who is the Raider this week who surprised you with the performance that they put on this week that was unexpected, that you didn't think that they were going to come out that way?
Solomon Thomas by far. I thought Carl Nassib was going to be a lot more involved in the pass rush, and I thought he was going to, maybe get a fumble or even a sack. And I think for the, unimpressed, I think I was unimpressed with Carl Nassib's play this week. I know that he's kind of been battling that pectoral strain that he had from the first game, but Solomon Thomas surprised me. Him, and then the consistency of Nate Hobbs just being a rookie. Like, I didn't expect him just to be so involved. There were a lot of plays that he was involved in where they were pivotal plays where they slowed the momentum for the Steelers, and I just love the fact that Solomon Thomas is coming into his own, and he's almost like reinventing himself on the Raiders.
Yeah.
One, because he's playing in his position that he was originally intended for, and the 3 technique for tackle, defensive tackle. And 2, I mean, the guy he has like a mental refresh after all the stuff that he went through with his sister dying and then the ACL tear, and just being a first rounder who's picked at the number 3 spot, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody, especially the team that he was on, because we all know the San Francisco 49ers defense, they're stout, especially up front. So he kind of lost his role there. But yeah, Solomon Thomas is just one of those guys that I'm rooting for him all year. I want him to do great. I want him to end with 8 to 10 sacks. If he
that would be amazing.
10 sacks, the return on investment, and I was reading an article about the Raiders have the highest return on investment in free agency this year on who they picked up. So something's going right in Las Vegas. And I don't think it's just the new stadium. I think there's a different sense in the building now that they have someone who's confident on the defensive side of the ball. The offense has always been good from, like, I would say 2016 and forward. I think our offense has really been good, with the one down year that Todd Downing was our offensive coordinator, which I hope he really just continues to fuck up the Tennessee Titans, because I want him to be exposed for him not being a good offensive coordinator, so that year just wasn't a fluke with the Raiders. And he has all the talent to work with, which is ridiculous, with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, but that's a total another discussion. But I just think the full circle team that we have, from special teams to offense to defense, and let's not stray from giving props to our man Daniel Carlson with 4 field goals.
Oh man, yeah, this dude's legit.
I don't know who has him in your fantasy league, but they had to get some good points this week. They had to get at least 12 points this week, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He might still be out there.
Hey, if he is, man, you got to get him, because this guy, I'm telling you, Anthony, he broke Janikowski's record last year, okay? Anyone who could do that in a single season, like, you got to give him their recognition. And I think the biggest thing with this Raiders team that I could really celebrate is the full circle effort of everyone on both sides of the ball, no matter the adversity. And I know that they picked up an offensive tackle, with Tom Cable being the offensive lineman whisperer, as far as how good he is. What's the guy's name? Jackson. What was it? The offensive tackle that they picked up off the Giants practice squad.
Oh, today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. It's Jackson Barton.
Jackson Barton. He was on that team with the Chiefs that won the Super Bowl. He actually went there mid-season. So, yeah, I know he probably was a backup. But the thing is he's seen what a winning culture is. And I think as a backup, to Brandon Parker, which I know that right tackle spot is going to be in question for a little bit with Alex Leatherwood, with that
Oh yeah.
train. But the thing that I love about this Raiders team is these guys fight. They're dogs when they need to be, and they just are relentless with the effort. And I really think they're playing for a coach who believes in them on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, Gus Bradley, I know he wants to clean some of those missed tackles up, but I mean, what do you feel that's different? Because remember last year we started off 2-0, we ended up going 6-3, and then it kind of collapsed towards the end, right? I think this team is just different. Give me your take on what you feel that's different from last year to this year.
I think the personnel that they've brought in, and I think that the way that training camp went down this year, I think for the Raiders, the way that COVID impacted the layoff of fans, players opting out, and I'm just talking about not the Raiders, I'm just talking about across the NFL, the mindset shift of the approach of we're together, we're here to perform, we have a new stadium, we're actually here. I don't feel like last year they felt like we are the Las Vegas Raiders, okay? When you put fans in the stands, you add that extra element that's out there. I think that with being in your training camp and having those fans there, having those interactions, that actually contributes to the atmosphere that will help a team. The shift and the fan base of the Raiders is top 3. There aren't many more fans. There are a lot of fly-by-night fans in the NFL.
Yeah.
Raiders ain't one of them, okay? No. I just think that all these things play into effect. Fans are back. Team wants to show out. You have guys who have matured a little bit. You brought in a great defensive-minded coach. You trimmed a lot of the fat. You have a lot of players, and you even said it yourself. You had motherfuckers who were linemen who were just fat pieces of shit last year who were just collecting a fucking paycheck and quitting on you.
Yeah.
This year, it's a different atmosphere. You have guys who want to play and stand in the trenches next to you and want to give it their all. You could definitely tell that as you weeded out some of the old, this is the true thumbprint of John Gruden, Mike Mayock, what they're doing. This is it right here. Yeah. And like you said, if this ain't it this year, you got to take your lumps, man, because this is it. That's what I feel. I feel like this is the full encapsulation of everything that they've come to at this point.
Hey, if Mike Mayock's out, I want Louis Riddick in, because Louis Riddick, man, that guy, like, he was a Raider, and he knows that he loves what he sees in Derek Carr in the offense. And he even been pounding his chest, and I give him mad props. Louis Riddick, man, he's definitely been recognizing how much more just stout we are on the defensive side of the ball, and just people who get after it. And yeah, to your point, I mean, I think having that offseason really did help. Now, I know everyone kind of went through it with COVID, but
yeah,
you can get those flash players who will contribute and have their moments to shine. But I think the camaraderie, like in the beginning, when they had the voluntary OTAs, everyone was there. There were people showing up that you did not expect to show up. I think there was like a 96% rate of people showing up. And you had your Josh Jacobs and Yannick, Quentin Jefferson. They didn't show up because they were doing their off-season work. But I think the buy-in of this team is just, at a level that we haven't seen. The will to want to win from the top to the bottom of this roster is there. The people know that they're going to get their rotation. It's not about who's going to get the most snaps. And, there are going to be those players who are going to get all those snaps, but people know that they're going to get that rotation with Gus Bradley. They're going to get their moments to shine. And they know that it's a collective effort, because like last year, the defense they were the ones to project this image of Derek Carr not being an efficient quarterback, not being a top 10 quarterback, because it's easy to place the blame on the QB when there's no defense present. And I hate to tell you, but the defense blew a lot of those when Derek Carr was playing his ass off last year. And, you have a good 4 wins that the defense kind of blew it on. Now, they did step up in some games, which, again, the games I'm circling is the first time we meet the Broncos, the first time we meet the Chiefs, and that Monday night game that's coming up again with the Chargers in a couple weeks. I really want to have them put to the test because that's going to be Gus Bradley's old team, So let's see what this defense is really made of, because we've shown what we could do against these solid teams. I want to do it in our division. I want to stick it to these dudes. I want to let them know that the Raiders are here. We're not going anywhere. It's time that Las Vegas steps up with that new stadium, and we're making the playoffs this year. But like I said, the defense is really where we're gonna, kind of encompass that full team of just being a competitor and an aggressor in all these games that people are going to start, circling that game and being like, this is the one we got to prepare for. So with that being said, any last minute thoughts just about the game, any expectations that kind of were exceeded, anything that you saw that maybe you didn't expect to see?
Honestly, I'm going to say this truthfully. I thought that that offense was going to lack without Josh Jacobs. Clearly, the rushing game wasn't there, but I felt like the game plan was executed meticulously. I think that they were able to match defensively, and all around, I think that this is probably one of the better games John Gruden has coached and the players executed. Yeah. To me, I think this is probably one of the better wins that you possibly have. And I think you and I both called it. We knew that the Raiders were going to win, and they dominated from the beginning of the game until the end of the game and really didn't take their foot off the gas pedal. So for me, I think that that's promising for a lot of Raider Nation to see that. What about you? What about your week's expectations from week 2? How do you feel?
I thought that the offensive line wouldn't be able to stand up as well as they did. Now, I do think that with Alex Leatherwood going out, that's kind of when my heart dropped in the game, because I was like, oh, man, I know he's a rookie, but he's really good. He's a big body. He's got athletic feet. Brandon Parker stepped up to the plate, man. Like, I know he gets shit on a lot, but the thing is I think the adversity of our offensive line, what they have to go through, and the lack of running game, it showed you how good this Raiders offense can be without the running game. But when you insert that running game, it's almost like it gives you a vote of confidence that you've never had before in the Raiders, because they were even saying throughout the broadcast, Josh Jacobs is in there. The Raiders are playing a different way, and they're dominating. Like, yes, we were the better team that day, but we dominate with Josh Jacobs in there. And that's something that's scary, because we haven't even been firing on all cylinders. Now, Derek Carr has done a great job, and I kind of was hesitant when you had made the prediction about Derek Carr and the performance he would have. But, hey, man, you got to give the dude his due. He's putting the team on his back, and I think he's tired of people saying that he's not in the discussion of the top 10, maybe even the top 5. Now, I know top 5's kind of – it's high because he doesn't have the proven record, but you give him a good defense, middle of the pack at minimum, and I think in that conversation. So I know it's a high, aspiration of mine, to kind of put that out there. And I don't care if Raider Nation kind of, guts me for it, but you give him a middle of the pack defense. And, I think this guy ends up taking us to the playoffs and even kind of deep, because that year in 2016, if he was available to play, I think we beat the Texans and we at least make it to the second round. So I think our defense really showed up. That's going to be something to keep an eye on, is the consistency of their play, especially with this next week when we do our pregame coming up for episode 5, when we face the Dolphins, because they have their kind of woes. But I'm really trying to see how we respond to these two difficult matchups going in back to Las Vegas to play Miami for our second home game of the year. And I'm just happy with everything, man. You know, I really am. And I think it's been a great 2 weeks, but we can't get too high. We need to keep everything in perspective, and it's just one game at a time. So with that being said, you know, I just wanted to go ahead and cue this music up. And, you know, from there, it's just one of those things. Oh. Really appreciate you guys coming and checking out the show. Again, episode 4 of the Rican Brothers Raidernation podcast. I'm your host, Nazo, along with my co-host, Anthony.
Like, subscribe. Let's get it.